My brother took my college fund because I have a good job anyway. My parents agreed, so I said nothing and moved out. A year later, when he needed money urgently, my phone buzzed relentlessly, each vibration sending a dull thud through my desk. I watched as my mother's name flickered across the screen, the same mother who, a year ago, had looked me in the eye and said, "You'll be fine, sweetheart. You don't really need the money." I let the call go to voicemail. The past year had been the hardest of my life, but I had done what they said I would. I had survived. No help. No college fund. No safety net. And now, suddenly, they remembered I existed. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. I wasn't surprised. My brother, Ethan, had never been good with money. He wasn't even bad with money, he was a disaster. But my parents had always seen him as the one with potential. So when the time came to decide what to do with the college fund our grandparents had left, it wasn't a discussion. "It's only fair," my dad had said. Fair. That word still made me laugh. Fair was me working full-time at 17 while Ethan got a new car for his birthday. Fair was me covering my own expenses while he focused on his studies and racked up thousands in debt. Fair was me getting the call that my savings, the money that was supposed to be my chance at a different life, was gone. "Your brother needs it more than you," my mother had told me. "You already have a good job." A good job. At the time, I was working 40-hour weeks at a hardware store, trying to keep up with rent, bills, and groceries while juggling community college classes at night. I had spent years planning for a future that was suddenly out of reach. Ethan, on the other hand, had been failing his classes and partying every weekend. But of course, he needed it more. I didn't fight them. I didn't yell. I just packed my bags and left. And I never looked back. Now, a year later, my phone continued buzzing on my desk, demanding my attention. But I already knew what they wanted. Ethan was in trouble. And they wanted me to fix it. I stood up, stretched, and grabbed my coffee, letting the phone ring. This time, I owed them nothing. The voicemails started piling up. At first, they were casual. "Mom. Hey, honey, just checking in. Call me when you get a chance." Then they turned urgent. "Mom. Listen, sweetheart, we really need to talk. It's important." And then came the guilt. "Dad. I don't know what kind of grudge you're holding, but this is serious. You need to call us back." Not want to. Not hope you will. I needed to. Because, as always, I was supposed to be the responsible one. The safety net. I ignored them all. It wasn't until the fourth day that I got my first real clue about what was going on. I was on break at work, scrolling mindlessly through social media when a notification popped up. Ethan tagged in a post. I hesitated before clicking, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a picture of him at a casino. A high-end one, from the looks of it. He was sitting at a poker table, laughing, drink in hand. The caption? "Big night, let's make history." The timestamp? 2 weeks ago. I stared at the picture, my fingers tightening around my phone. This idiot. I wasn't even surprised, just irritated. He had burned through my college fund, my future, and then had the nerve to blow thousands more at a casino. I scrolled down. Another post. Then another. Expensive clubs. Designer clothes. Trips. And then, suddenly, nothing. His usually active account had gone silent. That's when I realized, Ethan wasn't just in trouble. He was broke. And from the way my parents were acting, I had a feeling he owed someone serious money. I exhaled through my nose and locked my phone. Let them panic. I wasn't going to be their solution this time. By the end of the week, the messages took a new tone, desperation. I was at home, enjoying the silence, when my phone started vibrating against the table. Again. This time, it wasn't Mom or Dad. Ethan. I let it ring. Then a voicemail came through. I pressed play, already knowing it was going to be bad. Ethan. Look, man, I know we haven't talked, but I really need your help. A shaky breath. I messed up, okay? He hesitated. It's not just money. It's serious. And if I don't come up with it soon, I'm screwed. I frowned. He wasn't faking this. Ethan had always been arrogant, always brushed off consequences like they didn't apply to him. But here? He sounded genuinely afraid. Then came another voicemail. Mom. Please, sweetheart, just call us back. We wouldn't be asking if it wasn't life or death. Life or death? I wasn't sure if that was an exaggeration, but the weight in her voice made me pause. That night, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I drove to my parents' house. Not to help. Not to forgive. But because I needed to know exactly how bad it was. When I pulled up to the house, it was strange how little had changed. The same porch light flickered. The same half-dead rose bushes lined the front yard. And inside? The same family who had once chosen my brother over me. I rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, my mother swung the door open, eyes red, her face lighting up with relief when she saw me. "Thank God," she whispered. "Come in." I stepped inside, and for the first time in a long time, I saw Ethan. He looked terrible. Not just tired, wrecked. Dark circles under his eyes, hair a mess, and a nervous energy that made his leg bounce as he sat on the couch. My father stood nearby, arms crossed. Tense. Angry. Ethan looked up at me, and for the first time in our lives he didn't look smug. He looked terrified. "How much do you owe?" I asked. The room fell silent. Ethan swallowed. Then he said the number. And my stomach dropped. $50,000. The number hit like a punch to the gut. I stared at Ethan, waiting for him to laugh, to say he was exaggerating, that this was just some stupid mistake. But he wouldn't even look at me. My mother sniffled. It's worse than just the money." Of course it was. I crossed my arms. "Tell me everything. Now." Ethan exhaled shakily. "I got in with the wrong people," he mumbled. I thought I could double my money. I just needed to win a few big hands and..." I let out a bitter laugh. "And let me guess you didn't." He rubbed his face, looking miserable. "It was fine at first. I won a couple of times, felt unstoppable." He shook his head. "But then I lost. And I lost big." I didn't need the details to fill in the blanks. He'd kept playing, trying to chase his losses, believing, like always, that things would magically work out in his favor. But gambling debts didn't just go away. And from the way my parents were acting, I had a sinking feeling this wasn't just a casino problem. "Who exactly do you owe this money to?" I asked, voice tight. Ethan hesitated. Mom squeezed his hand. "Sweetheart, just tell him." He swallowed. "A guy named Marcus." I clenched my jaw. I didn't know Marcus, but I knew the type. This wasn't some bank loan or credit card debt. This was dangerous. "Are they threatening you?" I asked. Ethan nodded slowly. "I have a week to pay." My father, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "They came to the house." His voice was clipped, his hands clenched into fists. "2 men. They didn't break in, but they wanted to make sure we knew they were serious." I exhaled sharply. This was bad. "You need to go to the police," I said. "No!" Ethan's head snapped up, panic flashing across his face. "You don't get it. That'll just make it worse. They'll..." He stopped, breathing heavily. My mother wiped her eyes. "We just need the money, sweetheart. That's why we called you." I let out a slow, humorless breath. Of course. Not to check in. Not to see how I was doing after they'd taken everything from me. They only remembered I existed because they needed my help. Again. I shook my head. "No." Ethan blinked. "What?" "No," I repeated, voice cold. "I'm not giving you a dime." Mom gasped. But this is different." "Is it?" I scoffed. "Because the way I see it, it's the same thing that's always happened in this family. You made a choice a year ago, remember? You decided he needed the money more." My father's jaw tightened. "We didn't know this would happen. And I didn't know I'd have to work twice as hard to rebuild my life after you threw me aside, but I did. Without your help. Without my college fund." I turned to Ethan, my voice steady. "Figure it out yourself." His face twisted with anger. "You're really gonna let me get hurt over this?" I stared at him, unblinking. "I didn't put you in this situation," I said. "You did." I turned and walked toward the door. Mom chased after me. "Wait. Please don't go. We'll lose everything." I glanced over my shoulder. "That's exactly what you told me a year ago. And you didn't care then." I walked out. and I didn't look back. I expected the calls to start again immediately. I half expected my dad to storm outside and demand I come back, or for my mom to burst into tears in the doorway, begging me to reconsider. But neither of them did. They just let me go. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. I wasn't angry, not exactly. I had expected this. I knew my parents only reached out when they needed something. And Ethan? Ethan had never taken responsibility for anything in his life. But still, a small part of me, the part that still remembered being a kid in that house, fighting for scraps of attention, felt the sting of it all. When I got home, I turned off my phone. I didn't want to deal with the guilt-tripping, the frantic messages, or whatever excuse they try next. Let them figure it out. For once, it wasn't my problem. 2 days passed. Then 3. I didn't check my voicemails. I didn't read my texts. I just kept moving forward, the way I always had. Then, on the 4th night, someone knocked on my door. Not a casual knock. Loud. Urgent. I hesitated. I wasn't expecting anyone. And considering everything that had been going on, I had a bad feeling about this. I checked the peephole. Ethan. I sighed, debating whether to just ignore him. But before I could decide, he knocked again, harder this time. I unlocked the door and pulled it open just enough to look at him. He looked worse than before. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands shaking. He glanced over his shoulder, like he was making sure he hadn't been followed. "Please," he said. "Just let me in." I didn't move. "Why?" He swallowed hard. "Because they're after me." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stared at Ethan. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool night air. His leg bounced restlessly, his hands curled into fists. He was terrified. And for the first time, I believed him. But that didn't mean I was going to fix this for him. I kept my hand on the door. "Who's after you?" He swallowed hard. "Marcus's guys. They came to the house again. But this time, they weren't just making threats." A cold weight settled in my stomach. "What do you mean?" "They trashed Dad's car," he said quickly. "Slashed the tires, smashed the windows. They left a note on the windshield saying I had 48 hours left." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. I think they're watching the house now. I couldn't stay there." "So you came here?" I asked, my voice even. He nodded, desperate. "I didn't know where else to go." I stared at him, my fingers tightening around the edge of the door. It was surreal. Just a year ago, Ethan had everything handed to him: my college fund, our parents' unconditional support, a life without consequences. And now? Now he was standing here, shaking, begging me for help. If it were the other way around, if I had been the one in trouble last year, would he have helped me? I already knew the answer. I exhaled. "What do you want me to do, Ethan?" He licked his lips. "Just let me stay here for a few nights. Just until I figure something out." I didn't answer right away. Letting him in would make this my problem. But shutting the door? That would mean letting them deal with it. My parents, Marcus, whoever else Ethan had dragged into this mess. Ethan must have seen the hesitation in my face, because his voice cracked when he spoke next. "Please," he whispered. I should have shut the door. I didn't. Instead, I stepped aside. "You get one night." He didn't hesitate. He slipped inside, shoulders hunched, breathing heavy like he had just outrun something. Maybe he had. I locked the door behind him and turned. "Start talking," I said. "Tell me everything." Ethan sat on my couch, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together so tightly his knuckles went white. His foot tapped against the floor in an erratic rhythm, his body wound tight like a coiled spring. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Talk." He swallowed hard. "Marcus isn't just some guy at the casino." His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't slept, or maybe had done a lot of panic talking in the last few days. He's connected." I frowned. "Connected how?" Ethan shook his head. "Not the kind of guy you call the cops on." I felt my stomach sink. I already knew the answer, but I needed to hear him say it. "Are we talking loan sharks, Ethan?" He hesitated. Then nodded. I let out a slow, controlled breath. "Of course. You really are an idiot," I muttered. Ethan flinched but didn't argue. So you borrowed money from a loan shark, thinking you'd just win it back? I pressed. I didn't think it would get this bad, he admitted. At first, it was just a little. And then, he squeezed his eyes shut. I lost. And I kept losing. And they just kept lending. It was so easy to get more, and I thought if I just won one big hand, I could walk away clean. I scoffed. Yeah? And when has anything ever been easy for you? He didn't answer. I sighed and pinched the bridge of my nose. Let me guess. You missed payments, the interest skyrocketed, and now Marcus wants his money immediately. Ethan nodded slowly. He said if I don't pay by tomorrow night, they'll make an example out of me. My jaw clenched. This was worse than I thought. Marcus wasn't just threatening him anymore. He was setting a deadline. A final warning before things got ugly. And Ethan had come to me because he had nowhere left to run. I stared at him for a long moment. He looked small, like a kid who had just realized there was no way out of the mess he'd made. I could feel the weight of a choice pressing down on me. I didn't owe him anything. I owed none of them anything. But if I didn't do something, there was a real chance Ethan wouldn't just be out of money, he'd be hurt. Or worse. I exhaled. I'll help you. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes wide. You. I held up a hand. But not the way you want. He swallowed. What does that mean? I grabbed my keys. It means we're going to pay Marcus a visit. Ethan paled. Wait, what? No, you don't understand. I turned to him, my expression cold. Oh, I understand just fine, I said. You got yourself into this mess. Now we're going to see if we can get you out of it. Without paying a single cent. Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but one look at my face made him shut it again. Get in the car, I said. We were going to end this. One way or another. Ethan hesitated at the door. This is a bad idea. I grabbed my jacket. You got a better one? He didn't answer. We got into my car, the silence thick between us. Ethan fidgeted with the cuffs of his hoodie, his knee bouncing as I pulled onto the main road. After a few minutes he spoke. What exactly are you planning to do? I kept my eyes on the road. Talk. Ethan let out a nervous laugh. Yeah, because that always works with guys like Marcus. I didn't respond. Truthfully? I didn't know what I was walking into. But one thing was certain, I wasn't paying off his debt. And Marcus was about to find that out. Ethan slumped further into the passenger seat as I drove, his fingers tapping anxiously against his knee. Every few minutes he'd glance at me, like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Finally, he muttered, You really think Marcus is just gonna let this go? I exhaled slowly. I don't know. But we're going to find out. Ethan shook his head. You don't get it. These guys don't negotiate. If you don't pay, they make an example out of you. That's how they keep control. I glanced at him. Then why haven't they done it already? He hesitated. What? They've given you multiple warnings, I pointed out. They've made threats, trash Dad's car, but they haven't actually touched you. Why? Ethan swallowed hard. Maybe they're just waiting. I shook my head. No. If Marcus really thought you were useless, you'd already be paying for it. I could feel Ethan's anxiety growing. Then what are you saying? I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. I'm saying they don't want your money, Ethan. I glanced at him. They want something else. Ethan stared at me, his face pale. And I had a feeling we were about to find out exactly what that was. The drive felt longer than it was. Ethan was silent now, his earlier protests replaced by quiet dread. I could feel his fear radiating off him, but I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. When we pulled up to the address he gave me, my suspicions were confirmed. This wasn't some back-alley gambling den. It was a business. A sleek, upscale lounge in the heart of downtown, tucked between high-end restaurants and expensive bars. The kind of place where people like Marcus didn't just operate, they owned. Ethan swallowed hard. We don't have to do this, he whispered. I killed the engine and turned to him. Yes, we do. His hands curled into fists, but he didn't argue. I got out of the car. Ethan hesitated before scrambling to follow. Inside, the place was dimly lit, all dark leather and low music. A few men sat at the bar, laughing over expensive whiskey. A couple of sharply dressed guys near the back glanced up as we entered, their eyes sweeping over us like they already knew why we were here. And then, as if he had been expecting us all along, Marcus appeared. He was exactly what I imagined, late 40s, well-groomed, wearing an expensive suit that screamed control. "Ethan," he said smoothly, a slight smirk playing on his lips. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you." Ethan stiffened beside me. "Marcus, Marcus lifted a hand, silencing him. His sharp gaze landed on me instead. "And you are?" I stepped forward, keeping my expression unreadable. "His brother." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "The responsible one, then." I didn't rise to the bait. "We need to talk." Marcus studied me for a long moment before giving a small nod. He gestured toward a corner booth. "Let's talk." Ethan and I sat down across from him. Marcus leaned back, exuding confidence. "So I assume you're here to settle your brother's debt?" "No," I said simply. Ethan tensed. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. "No?" he repeated, like he hadn't heard that word in a long time. I met his gaze. "I know how this works. If you really wanted Ethan gone, he'd already be in a hospital, or worse. But you haven't touched him. That tells me one thing." I leaned forward. "You don't want his money. You want something else." Marcus's smirk widened slightly. "Clever." Ethan looked between us, his confusion evident. "Wait, what? Then what do you want?" Marcus steepled his fingers, turning his attention back to me. "Your brother's an idiot. But he's an idiot who knows people. He's been running his mouth, making connections in places he shouldn't." His smirk faded. "And now I have a problem." I stayed silent, waiting. Marcus sighed like this was all a minor inconvenience to him. "Ethan owes me 50 grand, yes. But more importantly, he owes me trust." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Marcus tapped a finger against the table. "A few weeks ago, your brother got involved in something he shouldn't have. He met people, overheard things." His gaze flickered to Ethan. "Didn't you?" Ethan's face went pale. He hesitated. Marcus shook his head. "He was at the wrong table at the wrong time. But instead of keeping his mouth shut, he ran. And now?" Marcus exhaled sharply. "I have a mess to clean up." I narrowed my eyes. "So what do you want?" Marcus's smirk returned, but this time, it was cold. "I want to know what he told." "And to who?" Ethan's breath hitched. I didn't say anything, I swear." Marcus leaned forward, his tone eerily calm. "You expect me to believe that?" Ethan swallowed hard. I cut in. "If I get you the truth, will you drop the debt?" Marcus studied me carefully. Then, after a long pause, he nodded. "Find out who he talked to. And maybe we can reconsider." I exhaled slowly, then stood. "Come on, Ethan." Ethan scrambled up, eyes darting between me and Marcus. "We're leaving?" I didn't answer. I just turned and walked out. Ethan followed. Once we were outside, he grabbed my arm. "What the hell just happened?" I turned to him, my patience gone. "You tell me, Ethan," I said, voice ice cold. "What did you get yourself into?" Ethan looked away, his hands shaking. And suddenly, I realized something. This wasn't over. Not even close.